For most people, calendars and to-do lists are two separate systems. The calendar is for things that are already scheduled, meetings, birthdays, appointments. The to-do list is for things that need to get done, paying bills, replying to emails. I used to work the same way, but over time, I started putting tasks into my calendar as well. And little by little, I noticed something interesting. My calendar stopped being just a place to record events. It became the place where I plan my life. I use it to plan what I want to do today, what matters most this week, and what projects I want to move forward in the future. As a result, I gained something I never really had before, a genuine sense of order. In this video, I'll show you exactly how I built this system and how it works. The first layer of order comes from having a clear structure for everything in my life. TickTick gives you two powerful tools for building that structure: lists and tags. Because of that, there are many different ways to organize your system. Creating them is easy, so I'll skip the setup process and focus on how I use them. In my system, I have 3 lists: this week, this month, someday. These lists organize tasks based on time. Then I use tags to organize them by area of life. For example, work, personal, family, things like that. If you're new to TickTick, the difference between lists and tags can be confusing. A list is where a task lives. A tag describes what area of life it belongs to. Lists and tags work together, and this is just one way to use them. Some people prefer creating separate lists for home, fitness, family, and personal instead. There isn't one correct setup. Use whatever feels natural to you. One mistake people make is overthinking categories. Should fitness be personal? Should dog-related tasks belong under home? It doesn't really matter. Categories don't need perfect boundaries. They just need to make sense to you. When you see a task, you should instinctively know where it belongs. That's enough. Once the structure is in place, the next step is simple: capture everything. Ideas, tasks, future plans, anything that comes to mind. Then place it into this week, this month, or someday, and add the appropriate tags. If you're not sure where something belongs yet, that's okay. Just throw it into the inbox. The goal is to get it out of your head first. Once everything has a place, your life starts feeling a lot less chaotic. And that's where the first layer of order comes from. Once everything is captured and organized, the next question becomes, when am I actually going to do it? Before I start planning tasks, I want a clear picture of the time that's already spoken for. Most people's lives already have a rhythm: a wake-up time, work hours, lunch breaks, small routines that happen over and over again. They may seem ordinary, but these recurring activities create the foundation of everyday life. So the first thing I do is put them into my calendar. For example, on weekdays, I usually wake up at 7 a.m. From there, I go through my morning routine: brush my teeth, grab a quick breakfast, walk the dog, exercise, take a shower, feed the dog, and get ready for work. The whole thing takes about an hour and a half. So in week view, I simply drag to create a time block from 7 to 8:30. I call it my morning routine. If you want, you can even add a checklist inside the task so every step is documented. Then I add a personal tag using the hashtag shortcut. Since my calendar colors are based on tags, it immediately appears in green. That makes it much easier to distinguish different areas of life at a glance. Since this is part of my weekday routine, I set it to repeat on weekdays. As for reminders, that's entirely personal preference. I only use reminders when I'm genuinely afraid I'll forget something. I already have an alarm clock, so I don't need a reminder for my morning routine. But if you often lose track of time or forget things, reminders can be helpful. On weekends, I usually wake up an hour later, so I simply create a weekend version with a different schedule and repeat rule. Then I repeat the same process for work hours, lunch, and other recurring activities. By default, you'll only see one occurrence of a recurring task. To display all of its repeat cycles, go to View Options, Show All Repeat Cycles. Once enabled, your calendar starts to reveal the rhythm of your life. And that's only half of the picture. Because there is another type of thing that belongs on the calendar: meetings, appointments, anything with a fixed time. My rule is simple: if it already has a date and time, it belongs on the calendar. Once all of those commitments are visible, I finally have a complete picture of my time. I can see what's already occupied, what's still available, and how much space I actually have left. That's where the second layer of order comes from. I no longer just know what I need to do. I know what my future time already looks like. But knowing what needs to be done and knowing what already exists on my calendar are still two separate things. The real magic happens when they become one system. In TickTick, I right-click the calendar icon and enable Show with Task. Now I can see both sides of the equation at the same time. On one side, my available time. On the other, the things I want to accomplish. And that's where planning becomes incredibly simple. At the beginning of each month, I review my someday list and decide what I want to focus on this month. Those tasks get moved into my this month list. Then I add anything new I want to work on this month and roughly place the tasks that already have a date in mind. At the beginning of each week, I switch to Week View and choose a few things from my this month list to focus on this week. Those tasks get moved into my this week list. And again, I do some rough planning directly on the calendar. Then, each day, usually the night before or the following morning, I review my schedule and decide what I want to work on today. Important tasks get dragged onto the timeline. That's it. Not everything needs a time block. I usually reserve specific time for the things that matter most. For example, I might block out 4 hours for deep work to make sure my most important task gets done. Everything else can stay in the all-day section and be handled when I have available time. This gives me structure without becoming rigid. And if something doesn't get done today, I simply move it to tomorrow. Because my calendar isn't a strict timetable. It's a tool for deciding where my time should go. And over time, it becomes a record of where my time actually went. I can look back and see how much time went to work, fitness, family, or my dog. I can see the patterns of my days, weeks, months, and even years. And that's where the third layer of order comes from. I'm no longer just recording tasks and events. I'm intentionally shaping how my time is spent. So that's my calendar system. For me, the biggest benefit of this system is visibility. I can see what needs to be done, when I want to do it, and how all those things fit together. Now, when I open my calendar, I don't just see tasks, I see order. And that clarity makes life a lot easier.